I am Ray, and today we're going to escape the mental hell of overthinking for good. And if you want to go all the way on this journey, click the link below, Monster Mind Mastery. Now we must understand how we've been done so wrong in our life, by the world, by society, even by our parents. It's really nobody's fault, but what happens is that we get stuck in this little box called ego. So around the age of 2, the ego starts developing. As our brain evolves more and more, the ego becomes stronger and stronger. The ego is identity. And well, by the time our brain stops developing, most people stay stuck that way forever. That's why they say a lot of people die at 27 and aren't buried until they're 70. Because people don't know how to change. People don't know how to escape this box. But today you will understand. This ego is like a gravitational force that pulls together all of these different things. So you got yourself some beliefs, some stories, some traits over there. And the ego just keeps pulling on more and more stuff. And the walls of this mental prison get stronger and stronger and stronger. And before we know it, there's nothing we can do. We're screwed. And what happens is that our identity is like a powerhouse for producing thoughts. And guess what? If that identity is negative, you're going to have a lot of negative thoughts. You're going to be worrying all the time. You're going to be overthinking. You're going to be ruminating on things that don't serve you. Overthinking is just a symptom. Negative thoughts are just a symptom. There's an underlying disease that is causing all the trouble. And most people don't realize how to deal with the problem at the root. It's not enough to just manage our thoughts. We must get to the source. Oops. And it all begins with a habit. Over time, our habits become who we are. And if you've fallen into the trap of habitually overthinking, of ruminating on negativity, well then we're going to have to undo that habit and build a better one. Fundamentally, to become a different person. We have to rewire ourselves, otherwise, there's nothing we can do. You're going to be putting out fires your whole life. And here's the thing, it's not enough to just try and positive think your way out of this situation. Positive affirmations don't work if your body feels unsafe. This is why positive thinking is hard for a lot of people. Because they have such a deeply rooted problem of fear and survival that it doesn't matter what the little conscious mind tries to do. It's like if you're getting chased by a grizzly bear. Are you going to say, I'm not getting chased by a grizzly bear. I'm not getting chased. Doesn't matter. Your body will take over. No matter what you do, you can't stop and just look at the grizzly bear and say, not there. You don't exist. It's a trap that many people fall into. You try to just pretend the problems aren't there. But your body knows. You're not fooling it. It's not enough to convince ourselves consciously. We have to convince the body. You see, there are 2 forms of identity. There's conscious identity and there's unconscious identity. Conscious identity is ego. The unconscious identity comes from the body. Now, what this means is that, well, through our conscious minds, we experience patterns. That is how we receive information. And we interpret those patterns, and they get transmuted into feelings. And that is the language of the body. Everything is just one big transfer of information from one form to another. So, for whatever reason, we take on certain characteristics that are aligned with our chosen identity. And everything else gets shoved into our shadow or unconscious. And that is where all the repressed and unconscious parts of ourselves are. And deeper still, on the instinctual level, our body is always taking notes. And this is the same for all beings, all animals. Your body needs to know what kind of reality are you living in. And it only knows this based off the feelings that you have. So every time you have a strong feeling about anything, negative or positive, your body takes a snapshot. And it takes whatever pattern that caused that emotional reaction with whatever feeling, and it stores it in your body as memory for later. Imagine like a vinyl disc. Nobody really uses them anymore, but I'm sure you've seen one. You got the song, which is the patterns, and the feelings are what ingrain the song into the vinyl. They are the grooves. So, well, if you've ever heard the phrase, that person is a broken record, they keep repeating the same patterns, the same stories over and over again. This is why. Because the song that's ingrained within them is just on repeat. They can't break free. They're stuck. The only way to break free from our mind prisons is to rewrite the song or wipe it clean. How do we do this? By speaking the language of the body. Feelings. Don't run away from your feelings. That is how we reprogram our unconscious identity. But first, we have to operate from a state in which we actually have control over. Meaning, we can only change our thoughts, change our actions. We can change the person we want to be. We can change our conscious identity. And that will help us reprogram the unconscious. So let's just take a simple example with relationships. That's a pattern. Romantic relationships, that is. And say you got cheated on in the past. So now you kind of, you got a bit of fear, a bit of worry, some negative memory stored in your body because you got screwed over. So your body remembers, and your body is going to force you into fight or flight every time you get into a relationship until you heal that trauma. So you won't be able to help yourself. You'll start to get paranoid. You'll start to be afraid. You start, scrolling on the social media, stalking them, calling them every hour. Where are you? What are you doing? Are you with other people? Are you cheating on me? And then, well, of course, because that behavior is toxic, the person ends up leaving you. And then we say, oh, I knew it. I knew it was going to happen. But we created it to happen because we expected it. Our body caused us to hyper-focus on a negative outcome to avoid the uncertainty, to avoid getting hit in the face. It's not the punches that you see coming that hurt. It's the punches that you don't see coming. So, your unconscious, which is fundamentally rooted in survival, it will always prioritize the known, safety, comfort. Even if it's hell, it would rather know that it's going to get screwed over than to get blindsided. You see this happen with people. We believe things into existence. We believe what we fear into reality, so we don't have to face the unknown. The only reason we overthink, we get paranoid, is because of that negative memory in the body. And it's not even us that is doing it. We are getting hijacked by our body, and that is the source of all self-sabotage. Because consciously, you don't want to mess up everything. Why would you do that? Unconsciously, you got no control. This is the automatic system. This is the manual system. This is the only place where we have control. Think about, for instance, of the future. How many people do you think overthink about the future? A lot. Why? Because we've had negative experiences in the past. So we kind of take responsibility, take credit for what the body is doing automatically. We think we're the ones that are overthinking. It's not true. Our body is just trying to predict future negative outcomes because of past negative experiences. Where we go wrong is that we feed it. We continue this cycle. We pour gasoline on the fire. And then also, we never get to the root of the problem. We have to learn first how to deal with our thoughts and then how to change them consciously to begin living an intentional life and not just allowing our automatic default programming to run amok. Because for most people, it's negative. That is why you see most people are a slave to a life they didn't choose. But you have no excuse, my friend. Because the moment you understand this, the moment you learn how to create any life that you desire, regardless of your external circumstances, it doesn't matter if you're living in Africa, getting chased by hippopotamus. If you survive this chase, because hippos run fast, well then, you have the opportunity to change. But if you get eaten, you can't change. It reminds me of a quote in the Gospel of Thomas, where Jesus said, for a man to eat a lion, that is a good thing, because the lion becomes man. It raises in consciousness. But for a man to get eaten by a lion, not good, because the man lowers in consciousness. This is kind of what he was talking about. People get eaten by their animal body. They are a slave to their instincts, a slave to their emotions. Why do you think so many men are in prison? Because they can't handle their emotions. They can't handle their instincts. Think about survival. How many crimes are created because of survival? Almost all of them. And then the rest of the crimes are done because of the sexual instinct. And then the rest of the crimes after that are done because of power, the social instinct. You got the root chakra, the sacral chakra, and the solar plexus chakra. All of our problems in life happen because we don't know how to handle this animal body. So the higher intelligence human aspect of ourselves gets consumed by our animalistic nature. And that is like half the deadly sins. What is lust? An overindulgence in the sexual instinct. What is gluttony? An overindulgence in eating food, survival. What is pride? Power. And it's so simple. It's not even that complicated. And I know when I was struggling in the darkness, for years and years and years, it felt impossible. I felt like I was going to be stuck that way forever. Like there was no hope. There was no light. But afterwards, after you break free, after you enter into the light, it's so obvious. Like how I really struggled this long. It was so simple. It was so easy. Maybe not always easy, but it's simple. All we have to do is speak the language of the feelings, our life changes. So I want you to think about whatever you overthink about. Don't overthink, but just where is one problem in your life that is causing you trouble, that you can't stop thinking about? And the moment you identify that, it reveals an underlying unconscious identity, or even conscious. And a reason that a lot of people fail is because they don't even know who they are. They're just a pile of conditioning. It's not wrong to have ego, but a lot of the times, our ego, it was created by others, by society, by our parents, by our friends. We don't take a stand and say, no, this is who I want to be. The point I'm trying to make is that, well, let's say you overthink about the future. Why? Well, you're trying to predict negative outcomes so you don't have to suffer. But there are billions of different things that could kill you every day, all the time. There's too much chaos. But what would happen if you knew exactly where you were going? If the path was clear and you had certainty each step along the way, you would be far less likely to overthink on negativity, because there would be far less things leading you astray. The point is, there's a big difference between being lost in the forest and walking down a path. If, as the ego, you aren't clear about who you are and where you want to go moving forward, there's going to be a lot of anxiety because you're just lost in this forest of chaos. But if you're clear about who you are, you're clear about where you're going, it's like walking on a clear path. Safety, order. And when there's order, there's less chaos, less anxiety, less reasons to overthink. This is one of the reasons why our unconscious paints negative pictures about us. Because from our current understanding of reality, if we've continuously encountered negative experiences, then whatever framework we're living from is not all that good. For instance, there are human brains that lead them to being homeless under a bridge doing crack. And there are human brains that lead them to becoming billionaires and also happy and mentally healthy. And so when we fail over and over again, we program our unconscious mind to say, hey, look, this animal right here is not doing that good. You need to continue to fuel it through worry and fear and overthinking. You need to give this animal anxiety because clearly it doesn't know what it's doing. It paints you to be like a prey animal, like a gazelle. And the gazelles are always in anxiety because there's millions of predators that could kill it at any moment. So it has to react fast. It has to be alert all the time. But think about the lion. The lion knows who he is. He knows he's the king of the jungle, so he's got no worry. He's chilling. He's got no predators because he's the king. So he has no anxiety. He has no worries. Maybe every once in a while. And that's normal. But you can begin to see this kind of dynamic play between the higher consciousness, human aspect of ourselves and the animalistic part. All of this over here is just the surface level, the tip of the iceberg. This is where the majority of the problems lie. We have to get out of gazelle consciousness and get into lion consciousness. We have to tell our body, look, we're at the top of the food chain. I'm not a little mouse or something like that. I'm not a scavenger. I don't have to worry. And you see, the body doesn't know anything other than the information that you feed it. And we just kind of get thrown into life and encounter a lot of negative experiences. So we feel negative all the time. So we program our unconscious to be like a prey animal. But think about people who are born into abundance, or the jocks in high school. They're born at the top of the hierarchy, so they don't have anxiety. They don't really have worry all that much. That is until their identity is threatened. But if you're born at the bottom of the food chain, you're always going to have anxiety, you're always going to worry, because that is the motivation for prey animals, not for the predators at the top. So the next time you begin overthinking, pay attention. What is the pattern you are overthinking about? Begin to think about it. Or should I say, analyze it. Begin questioning, why am I overthinking about this? Interesting. We want to get to the underlying identity. Become aware of the stories we tell ourselves, the limiting beliefs, the unhealthy patterns. In what ways have we trapped ourselves in this ego prison? Once you know the pattern that is traumatized, you can change it. You can rewrite that vinyl disc. Think about it like a cough and an underlying cold. You know you have a cold because there's a cough. There's the effect and there's the cause. So when you're overthinking, that's the effect. We got to get to the cause. Once you see the cause, now you can deal with it. We speak the language of the feelings by consciously choosing different thoughts. By consciously choosing to become a different person. To consciously choosing to respond and react to things differently. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you look at the future to be positive, and you tell yourself that over and over again, good things are coming. Oh, I can't wait. Well, then your body stops worrying about the future and it starts anticipating good things. If you overthink about relationships, well, it's probably a low self-esteem thing. When you start feeling better about yourself, when you believe that, oh wait, it doesn't matter whether or not this one particular relationship works out or not, because I'm worthy of receiving the highest quality person. I deserve it. And of course, you might not believe that in the beginning because the automatic programming is running. We have to overwrite it, one day at a time, slowly. But you can reprogram the unconscious mind in a short amount of time if you know what you're doing. If you can learn how to speak the language. The feeling is the secret. You start feeling better about yourself, and you start feeling better about others. And in this case, you might not necessarily need to delude yourself and say, oh, well, my partner's going to cheat on me. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. I swear. Well, you don't really have control over that. Maybe they will. It doesn't matter if they do or don't. What matters is your relationship with you. If you can feel good with yourself, you can feel good with others. If you cannot feel good with yourself, you will never feel good with others. And, well, you'll end up sabotaging every relationship. Until one day you wake up and realize, oh, wait a minute, it was me. The moment we reprogram that unconscious identity, we cut off the source of all of these excessive thoughts. We start feeling better about ourselves, about life. We enter into lion consciousness. And think about it. If your body believes you to be at the bottom of the food chain, it will not allow you to express yourself. It will not allow you to say the right things. It will constrict your energy. It will keep you stuck because that is safety. Because if you were going to go do the top of the food chain things, well, you would just get eaten or beat up by someone who is actually at the top of the food chain. You wouldn't see a rat try to go live a life like a lion because he would get eaten immediately. But for human beings, it's a much different story. We can program our unconscious to be any way we want. We can program it to live in abundance. We can program it to be high status, to be relaxed, not overthinking all the time. Literally anything. So just remember, find the pattern that is traumatized, then begin to feel differently about it by consciously repeating positive affirmations. Changing the way you think about it, changing your identity, changing the way you look at things. The moment you remedy the disease, the symptoms go away. I am Ray, and if you don't want to wait any longer to break free from this mental hell, I created a 90-day step-by-step program of everything that saved my life after struggling with negative thoughts and overthinking for 7 years. The link is down below. Much peace and many blessings. And remember, just be.